Oh, you better buckle up, buckaroos. We're doing a whole bunch of talking today. Hey, what's going on, guys? Heads here from Infinity Loops, and today I'm going to be answering a question I've gotten asked a few times, and that is, how do you improve on your freestyle? So this is a bit of a subjective question because freestyle is free, and you're free to do whatever you'd like. So if anybody ever tells you that your freestyle is not freestyle, well, they're wrong. As long as you're not running on a race course or just running a pre-planned kind of like, a cinematic line, as long as it's just your brain coming through on the sticks, I really don't see how you could call it not freestyle, but that's just me. So without further ado, let's run through some of the things that I use in my daily flying and things that I try to keep in mind when I'm flying. The first tip I can give you is think about the parts that are going into the whoop that you're flying. Do they fit your style? Are you using the right KV? Some people like a higher KV, some people like a lower KV. Are you using the right props for your style? Some people like a really hard catch when they come down out of a dive, others prefer a nice gradual catch. These are all things you need to think about and consider. Battery size, your motor KVs, your rates, are those all appropriate for your style, or are one of those things holding you back a little bit? Second tip, kind of an obvious one, but we'll build off of it. First off, practice as often as possible. And that's kind of an obvious one. But also, while you're practicing as often as possible, make sure you're practicing all the tricks that you're doing to the left, to the right, backwards, and forwards. So anytime you go into a juicy flick, don't always flip forward and roll out of it right. Try flipping backwards and rolling out of it left. If you normally do a power loop, try a Matty flip. Now this is just one of those good habit kind of things. It's not really like a necessity. As far as I'm concerned, your whole freestyle video could be all right turn moves and I'd be totally happy with it. Moving on to our next tip. Not every flight that you take has to be amazing. Sometimes I learn a lot about my piloting habits as well as the whoop that I'm flying or whatever quad I'm flying just by taking a couple cruising flights. It's always a good idea to take a slow pack when you're flying a new area before you go for a freestyle rip. Scope the area out on foot and then take your first battery and just cruise. Warm your hands up, warm the quad up, get your mind in the right spot, kind of get your flow going a little bit slowly, and then pick up the pace your next couple packs. The last thing you want to do is go out to fly, go hard on your first pack, break something, and ruin the rest of your day. The next tip I can give is looking at all these quads back here, not all of them fly the same. And I don't mean that just because they're at different sizes. I mean that I didn't try to make them fly the same. Their tunes some of them are real snappy, some of them are real soft, not for any particular reason, but I just adapted to them and just learned to fly them the way that they are and just left them. I leave well enough alone whenever I can in this hobby. I've learned that the more I tinker with things, me personally, usually the worse it gets. So instead, I just leave it alone. If it flies good enough, then I'll make it work. So if you have a whoop that doesn't fly exactly like your other whoop, maybe just adapt instead of spending time tinkering and messing with it, possibly screwing something up, trying to get it to fly like your previous whoop or your other whoop, your backup, whatever. Just get used to it, adapt to it. It's not a bad thing. It's actually kind of nice to adapt to things quickly because then you can go fly your friend's stuff when you meet up and you don't feel so nervous just being able to get on somebody else's radio or fly somebody else's quad or use somebody else's goggles. The next tip I can give you is less is more. What I mean by that is less room you give yourself to fly in, the more you'll learn to adapt to things and handle your quad.
If you can dodge a wrench, you can dodge a ball. What?
I personally have found that the less space I've given myself to practice in, the easier of a time I have when I go out to fly bigger spaces outdoors. The next tip on the list pertains to learning a new trick. I personally learn new tricks not by doing them over and over and over and over again. I learn them by trying them, failing, and then trying them in a line, and then I am able to do it. So once I get into a little bit of a flow, I do some moves that I know I'm comfortable with and that I know I can do, and then work that new trick in there. So you go in with a little more confidence, in my opinion, than beating yourself up just trying over and over and over and over again. I know some people learn that way. Personally, I think it's more beneficial to learn it in a line while you're kind of in a flow, because that's how you're going to eventually do the trick, is in a freestyle line. You're not going to have a whole bunch of opportunities to try the trick over and over again in a freestyle line. For me, finding my flow sometimes can be hacked a little bit by using music. I almost never fly without listening to music. It's almost awkward to me to fly without it now. I don't like to plan freestyle lines, so instead I kind of let the music that I'm listening to set the tempo of the flight. So if I got some fast-paced EDM type music I'm listening to, you'll see a lot more stick movements out of me, a lot more complex, fast-moving tricks, a lot more twitchy back and forth kind of rewind stuff. But if you see slower, more methodical movements, smoother turns, less snapping back and forth, less juggling while I'm flying, more just flowing straight lines, I'm probably listening to something a little slower, a little smoother, a little calmer. Sometimes when I'm editing a freestyle, I'll use the exact song I was listening to while I was flying. Sometimes I'll even listen to the same song on repeat while I'm flying just to kind of keep my tempo the same of all my flights that I'm recording so that I can later edit it to that song and they all kind of fit somewhat to the beat. The next tip I can give you, I think, is a pretty crucial one, and that is to always remember to challenge yourself. So whenever you're flying and trying to improve on your flights, don't just keep doing the same trick over and over and over and over again. If you got it, well, stop doing it so much. You're good. You got it down. Perfect. Go practice some other stuff. Don't get into the habit or that bad muscle memory of just doing the same trick over and over again. Piggybacking off of that last tip is the next one, and that's to make sure that you're also changing up your scenery a little bit. So if you notice, most of the videos that I do out here in the garage, the gates are almost always in different positions. There's different gates, they're different sizes. Sometimes there's cardboard boxes, sometimes there's trampolines. I try to always keep it mixed up, and that's not only to keep everybody entertained that's watching, but it keeps me entertained when I'm out here flying. I don't like to do the same thing over and over and over again. And leaving the same gates set up, I've noticed you get into bad habits. You start to do the same trick through the gate that's in the corner of the room. You know, like you have like a line almost in your head of like, I always do a split ass to the right when I go through this gate. And much like doing the same tricks over and over again, if you change up the scenery in the room, that can also help just make you improve and work on things that you're not so comfortable with. The next tip is another pretty obvious one, and that is just get some sim time. Sim time is not only fun, but it's really beneficial just learning the stick movements, the hand movements, getting your fingers used to what they need to do to get the trick done. So that way when you're flying in real life, you kind of have somewhat of a muscle memory built up. So don't worry if it doesn't fly exactly like your quad does in real life. The stick movements are more so what you're looking for. The next tip is another one that calls back to an earlier one, kind of, about the cruising flights and learning how your whoop flies. Another thing I think that can be really beneficial for you is to learn how your whoop crashes and how it handles prop wash. So how it doesn't fly. Find out how it doesn't fly great in those situations and learn how to fly out of them. Learn how to recover from small bumps and things like that. Recovering from a small bump can save you on replacement parts later, or just plowing your whoop into the ground and having to get up and go get it. And learning how to handle your prop wash can help you when you're in really high dives or really intense tricks that are a little much for a whoop and you might get some washout on. Learning how to steer out of situations like that, really helpful to keep your line moving, keep you in the air, and keep your whoop in one piece. So I think we will leave it there for today. Thank you so much for tuning in. We hope these tips help get you started on improving that freestyle flow. Leave any questions or comments for us down below, and I will get to them as soon as possible. Thank you very much for watching, guys. You take care of yourselves, and we will see you in the next one.